Alright, here we are. What's up, guys? It is Zerilath, and we're doing another installment on Bock Saga. So we're doing Altlantis, I haven't figured out exactly if I feel like doing Welcome to Hell, because I feel like I covered enough things, and we'll see. I'm probably lying to myself, and I will do it. I'm just, I'm wondering if I'm just overlapping stuff, right? And I don't want to overlap stuff. I don't want to do stuff for nothing. But anyway, how's it, guys? How you guys doing? Woo, energies. My energies are somewhere today. All right. So my volume is low. Thank you. Why is my volume low? Low. Hang on. Up there. We'll put it up there a bit. That should be all right. Okay, cool. So anyway, we're gonna go over this. Altlantis is about a 50-minute film, and we're going to see how we do. All right, let's just have at it. Oh yeah, and today's music was from a band called Ancients. This was not a local like I was doing the last maybe 3 streams or so. This one I went for a major label situation. Hey, what's up, Parsons? Yes, and happy 2025, everybody. Nicholas, Holistic Logistics, how's it going? Oh, you're the one out. Oh, okay, guys. So Derek, you keep making channels. How many channels do you have now, bro? But anyway,
in the Bock Saga, there are many, many stories inside of one big story. And in this saga, we also have 3 periods of time. One is called the Paradis, or in English, the Paradise Time. And the Paradise Time is when the planet was sitting straight up and down before we tilted over. And in the Paradise Time, the whole planet was tropical. And one day, they have something called a Ragnarok. And Ragnarok is one destruction of the Astra system. 50,010,032 years ago, the axle of this planet tilted over. The sea evaporated to the top of the ball, and the ys, or ice, came down. And the whole top of this planet and the whole bottom of this planet was covered in ice, kilometers deep, in 90 days. In this time, when this ice came down, there was one part of the planet where the ice didn't come, and the people survived. But in the top of the planet where the ice came down, all people were covered with kilometers of ice. The key to understanding this part of this saga we call the Altlantis time. Alt, A-L-T, A-L-T. Alt means all the. Land means land, and Is means ice. All land, ice. It later became what we call Atlantis today, but the original name was called Altlantis. Welcome to Altlantis. Welcome to Altlantis, or Atlantis, as we know it today. We're sitting here on one island, on Sari, in the middle of the Baltic Sea. And the name for this island is today called Gotland. And in the saga, this island has a very big part in part of this history of our planet. And this island we're sitting on here was in the very middle of this Gulf Stream as it's coming into the Baltic Sea, and as the ice came down, as this ice age began, it didn't stick to the island. It came down. It wasn't part of the glacier system that was up on the flatland. As this warm water rushed in on both sides, it was kept 7, 8 months a year. It was completely like it is right now, green so the people, they could stay here. It was part of this Altlantis system. This Bock family, these Osser people, over millions of years of time, in this beginning of this Altlantis, these people that were trapped up here in the ice, these Osser, they were brown, they had brown eyes, they had brown hair. But over a long, long period of time, in this 7 months, 8 months of nice weather and 4 or 5 months of really dark weather, 4 months of dark weather, cold, we lost the pigment in our skin. Our eyes started to turn blue, and we got light hair. So this, inside this Altlantis or Atlantis is the source. It's the beginning of the white race of people. This warm water that had gone up and had to the top, had always been going over the top of the planet, this Gulf Stream from the Mexico that had been rerouted into this Baltic Sea to keep this coastline around here ice-free in this glacier time. Finally, after a long, long period of time, it had cut away at the ice at the very top of Norway. And these glaciers were starting to slide away. And this Gulf Stream started to go over the top of the planet again. 10,032 years ago, these Osser people, this Bock family, who were living in Hell, which is where Helsinki is today, about 295 miles from here, they realized that they had to come out, that this Atlantis time, this ice time, was about to be over with. The second Ragnarok, or the second destruction of the system, was about to happen.
All right, so I'm going to pause right there, and just to let you know that what's going through my mind right now is that I'm remembering now a handful of the details I was stumbling over with prior ones when talking about that transition out of the Altlantis, and this helps bring a little bit of that back into clarity, especially the fact that this location is not in Hell. Right, this is in Gotland, and so that's kind of part of the displacement process. But it's 300 miles at the same time, right? And 300 miles is nothing. It's really nothing, right? So this is all like a very big area in question.
In this system, there was usually the father and the mother, 12 sons and 7 daughters. But in this Atlantis system...
And one more thing. Like, I don't know how many people pay attention. I mean, when it's your own hair, you pay attention. Like, I don't know about too many other people, right? It's just like, in the summer, when I get out there, you know, my hair ends up... It's like my hair goes from light brown to almost a dirty blonde. And that is definitive by the sun, and at least it was very much that way for many, many years. It's in the last few years I haven't really thought about it much because my hair has gone through a little bit with the things that changed in my physiology, and my hair had to readjust, and so you know, it's just like, you know, like this hair is growing back from a period where it didn't even get cut. Right, hair is a very interesting thing. I didn't cut my hair. It got shorter because I was exercising. It took my head a hot minute to wrap around that, as I was not enjoying. I wasn't enjoying the length. It was like, what the fuck? I didn't cut it. It's not what I wanted to fucking look like, right? So, you know, thankfully, it's coming back, right? It's looking pretty good. All right.
Since they weren't making so many people, they had only the mother, the father, 7 sons and 7 daughters. So they made a smaller system. So 10,032 years ago, the Bock, the Swan, the mother and the father, 7 brothers, 7 sisters, and their tour friends, their best friends from this Rousette class. 30 people climbed aboard one boat, and from this hell, they brought these domestic animals. They brought the grains at the creation for the agriculture. They had already planted this area in trees. So this place was livable. And these 30 people They left from hell and they came to this island called Gotland. There was one big difference between these 30 people sitting on this island 10,032 years ago and the rest of the people who inhabited the whole southern part of the planet. These people were Arcticos, so 10,032 years ago there were only 30 white people on this planet with blue eyes, and they lived on this island. And they came to this island, they went to one place called Visby and up to this place called Lumalunden Cave, and they started to inhabit this area.
All right, so get that straight. By 10,000 years ago, there were 30 white people on the planet. That's it. And that's not because we were dying out. It's this race was emerging.
They also carved some rune stones. And in these rune stones that they find around this island is the story of hell. And these rune stones are almost 10,000 years old. If you know how to read the rune stones, inside was the story of hell carved into stone in what they call rune script, or character writing or letter writing in stone. These people, they lived on this island. About 97 or 9,800 years ago, they went back to the 12 brothers in the 7 sister system. And somewhere around 96, 9,700 years ago, these 10 brothers in the middle, not the first one, Ra, not the 12th one, Bock, but these Bock and Balders, these 10 brothers in the middle, they went out over this planet and they met up with these 10 tropical kings from these 10 tropical races. The Polynesian, the Aborigine from Australia, the Hindu from Hindustan, the Chinese from China, this old Hellas system, which was the Greek system, this Roman system, which is all these countries around this Mediterranean Sea, the South African, which was the blue man, what we call African people today, and this Inca, Mayan, and Aztec, these 10 tropical races.
I still want to know. I still want to know why we registered that as blue. I'm wondering if that is correlated to how, they say the ocean was not described as blue back in the day. It had a wine-like texture. And so, like, these 10 kings that came down, I think we're talking about that explanation for the mysterious kind of, like supreme being that was described as a white dude that would come down, Quetzalcoatl, all this shit, right?
Around the planet, each was one king system from the paradise time. And these 10 brothers, they met up with these 10 tropical kings after millions of years. So the first white man met the first man with color about 9,600, 9,700 years ago. And they took out the information of agriculture. So in China, you can see agriculture from around 10,000 years ago. South America, you can see agriculture from about 10,000. Africa, all this agriculture was one gift from the Author to the Vonner people about 9,600, 9,700 years ago. These 10 brothers.
And I suspect that much of what we see with these uniform reliefs that you see around the world, which has, like, the deity with the handbag and the pine cone, right? It's the pine cone for one thing. So this brings us back to the north, because it's the fucking pine cone, and there aren't pine trees where there isn't cold. As far as I know, correct me if I'm wrong on that. But and then you've got the bag, and I'm just looking. I was just like, seed bag. It's a seed bag. It's got to be. It's just like my mind eventually went to the mundane, because when this relief is presented to most people like us, we're typically getting introduced to anthropology and archaeology through another interest in the woo zone, right? You're looking up something about alien encounters, and you're listening to some theory about ancient history that gets you going, and then you get the the guy pointing at the ancient thing with his with how he is analyzing it. There's his analysis of the data that is leading his theories, right? Analysis of the data is where they fucking lie. How to lie with statistics.
Others, they were called Hanumans.
So my point is that I dumbed myself down for it for a second. I said, like, wait a minute. What would be a practical explanation if this was possibly not something woo-woo? Okay, some guy in a deity's headdress comes to your civilization, meets up with your king, and shows him this stuff and says, let me give a presentation to the people, and then that's the history, and he makes a presentation. I come with the tech of agriculture. Here's a seed, here's a bag that you hold the seeds in, and this blew people's minds. And that's my theory. That's my theory about what's going on with that, because I don't see any crazier concepts of technology going on with that. And don't give me lip service about that thing that looks like a laptop in Egypt. You don't know what the fuck that is.
And these 10 brothers, they came back after they had met. So this first article, white man with this tropical Bonner people, was around this time. They lived on this island for 1,000 years. As the glaciers are coming down in Scandinavia, they're coming over Norway, they're coming over Finland, Russia. They're taking all this land away. They're scraping, making lakes, these huge ice.
And let me say another thing. We design laptops a certain way for their purpose. The laptop was not the first fucking, like, flat clamshell design thing that was ever fucking made in the goddamn world. With holes on the side of it. Being depicted in a simple stone structure. This is how grifty people that do what I do out there are.
Mountains are, but in this island here.
Oh, Gareth, yeah, what about the helicopters? It's not a fucking helicopter. It's a hieroglyph that was chiseled over by another fucking hieroglyph. Look at the hieroglyph. It's a mess. It's broken. Somebody scratched it out and then wrote over it. It's not the original fucking text. It doesn't say anything in hieroglyphics. It's out of place. It's out of context. It's not a helicopter or submarine in a cigar shape. What? Fuck that shit. Fuck that shit. These people are driving you crazy. They're driving you crazy and building all of your fucking heart hopes on the woo factor based on these goddamn thin veils of evidence. Stop looking for your space saviors or your space devils that are going to change the world. It's all within you.
Here in Gotland, it wasn't part of the fast land, so the glaciers, they were safe here. The glaciers were just moving by. 9,032 years ago, this Bock family, these Osser people, this what we would call the Aryan race or the white race of people, they had now started to create one white race of people. And this Pirouette family, this family from this hell, this Bock family, they decided now they could move back to hell and start to rebuild hell again because the ice, the Ragnarok had finished. The destruction was over. So 9,032 years ago, this family, they left from here and they went back to hell, back to where Helsinki is today, the new name for hell. And there they start to live and they start to create one new article race of people which spread out over Russia. So the Finnish people and the Russian people, they're exact same people. They spoke Finnish language until 800 years ago. But something happened in the family. Sometimes when they were trying to make many, many children quickly, they had...
Now, what's interesting is, right, because I've met people from Finland. I showed the Bock Saga to a Finnish ex-girlfriend from last year that I made. I didn't show her a whole lot of it because there was a whole lot of things going on. I showed her a little bit of it, you know, and it was something that she didn't know. So I was introducing her to this thing that comes from her lands, right? And that's something that I've not heard outside the Bock Saga or outside of this video as of yet, that apparently everybody in the Russian lands used to speak Finnish, right? Well, which also makes sense. It's the Von language. If, you know, everything else lines up about the Bock Saga, that would have to be true on a certain level because we know that the Von language has to come first, right? And often history can validate this. And 800 years ago is well within recorded history. It's well within Christendom, who, despite what Christendom is, typically made good on all sorts of details that would later become part of the validations of the Bock Saga, right? So that's an important data point to explore about Jim, about the Bock Saga's claims that Jim is making. All right. Well, that Jim's telling the Bock Saga story. Just I'm trying to impersonalize it because I love these people. I love all you guys. I do. All right.
More than 12 sons, and these more than 12 sons could be ambassadors, they could be information people going out, but in this case, two of these brothers, the 13th and 14th son, they had no title in the family because it was only the 12 sons that had the title. So these two brothers, these two kings, they wanted to become kings, so they decided not to go back to Finland, not to go back to hell, to be part of this Astra system there. And one of these brothers was called Dan, and one was called Sven. And they were we two kings. They were the Vikings. And these two brothers, one, Sven, he goes to Uppsala, where Uppsala, Sweden is today. And there he makes his capital. And he starts one article race of person there. And from his seed, from the seed of Sven, comes the Norwegians, the Icelandic, the Greenland people, the Scottish people, and the Irish people. They come from the seed of this Swedish king. Don, the other brother, the other of the two brothers, he goes down to Denmark. He makes the mark of Don, and mark means land, so the land of Don. And this Don, from his seed, comes two kings in Germany. I think their name is Gottrip and Brandenburg. And these first two seeds is Brandenburg is where Berlin is, and this Gottrip, I think, is where the Lübeck is. I could be mistaken on this, but I put this in. But anyway, the king line of Germany or Saxon, they're coming from the Danish, from his seed. And from this German and from this Danish, from this source story, comes the Austrian, the Swiss, the Dutch, the Holland people, the Belgian people, the English people. So the English is a different race than the Scottish and the Irish. They are.
So I'll also say this much, right? Being of a mix of a couple of these mentioned things, especially because the French people are just Germanic people Latinized, Romanized, if you will. Right? So you've got the Norse people and the Germanic people by Sven and Don, right? And so I'm thinking here that the manner in which Norse mythology really established itself the way we know it probably came from how Sven and Don kept up the ancient traditions in whatever works in that respect, right? Okay, so Saxon. Right. Saxon, which wasn't there also in Lord of the Rings the Sackville Baggins, which almost has a Saxon kind of sound to it, even though we're talking about hobbits and the Saxons were warriors and the hobbits are farmers. But anyway,
They're another race. They're from the Sven line, whereas England is coming from the Dan line, all the way down to France. So all this Western Europe is coming out from the seed of the Dan. So these two Vikings, these first two kings, 9,032 years ago, they come off from this island and they start this two more white races. There's 3 white races of people. There's 10 tropical races. The oldest white race is the Finnish and the Russians. These are the original white people on the planet. The second and third white people is the Dan, the Danish, and the Swedish. And you could check their hearts to see. And I gave one heart story in the Welcome to Rajasthan. You could check their hearts to see which race they are.
Right, and as hearts, we all know that he means the head of the penis. Oh yeah, yeah, and so okay, so he's talking about these three white races, right? And so that makes everything very interesting because you're asking yourself, well, where do the Celts come into play? For certain, right? Because what about the Tuatha De Danann? Which of course you have. There's obviously the tribe of Dan has something to do with that seeding, so probably you could make that kind of claim, even though these Celtic type people like like Irish type people, I suppose Scottish like myself, um, whatever that is. I just know that also as my Scottish side, knowing just enough about my family name as well as my connections to my father on my father's mother's side, that I'm a Norman. And then the Normans, that's that's Norwegian, and I think particularly in claim to Orkney, which I kind of think is where Tolkien may have gotten the word orc from, the unpleasant side of what it means to be a fucking Viking. I suppose being an orc would make perfect sense. A man from Orkney, the men from Orkney, perhaps brutes to many, many a person. And so, thus, I'm a Scot, but I suppose I am more Norse. I mean, like, I love what comes out of Celtic, out of Ireland, mythos and everything like that. It does not call me very strongly. It doesn't call me very strongly. Maybe it's only because I need a truer introduction to it for, like, my heart to see it, but, like, my heart doesn't see it right now, the way that I get the sight of the mythos for the Norse. But anyway.
And this is his Gotland story. It's probably more to it, but anyway, this is where they came out from in Atlantis. Atlantis was not some kind of UFO story. Atlantis was not some kind of big silver palaces and stuff. It was a period of time, how people lived in nature in the middle of one ice age. And now we leave from the Gotland. This is, I would say, the when we came out from Atlantis. This is the end of the Atlantis story, because Atlantis was crushed over, not with flood. Atlantis was crushed over with glaciers. It was completely crushed 10,032 years ago.
I just wish that the megalithic structures had a better answer in the Bock Saga. That's probably my biggest irk with the Bock Saga, is that there isn't, at least, because obviously I'm not expecting the Bock Saga to teach you how to fucking build a pyramid to prove itself. I am just saying that, Stonehenge, the pyramids, the underwater cities, so on and so forth, the structural engineering, like, did we at least have cool techno tools? Was it just a bunch of monks humming a resonant frequency that softened the stone? I mean, what did we do to carve the stones to such mathematic, angular precision? Who did that? Right? You don't think of that level of engineering based on any of the evidence. You go to the Mayan peoples and the Toltecs and the Olmecs and all the, you see their tremendous structures, but you don't understand where the learnedness of the engineers was coming from. There is no, you would think there'd be an equivalency of an institution, especially, it didn't have to be much, because you're talking about way different population ratios, way different population scales. Big populations back then were a smaller number. But anyway. believe is, there's nothing tech, right? Like this is just the way it is, and like apparently 30 people lived in here for a long ass
This is centrifugal force, the spinning wheel, the earth spinning. And at the very top is one ringland called Udenma, or hell, or
Now you look, there's 6 spirals, so that's probably in correlation to the hexagram.
Asgard, or Midgard. At this very center, this ringland here is 250 kilometers across, 125 kilometer radius. And in the very center of this is Valhalla, or Midgård, the middle of the yard, the middle of the land. If you were looking down from the North Star onto the planet, this is what you would see. It's the very North Pole. This is
Now, let's think for a second about Valhalla and the Chosen and such, because this was, brought up yesterday when I was interviewing Micah Dank. I'm going to have him back in a little bit of time with under slightly more preparations, and I told him a little bit about Valhalla. And then there was also somebody very interested in that. It must be one of Micah's guys commenting. He's a new commenter who threw me some extra proper etymology on Valhalla, which helped back up my point. Right? Because there's the aspect of value, there's the aspect of the chosen, and why both of those actually work is in the Bock Saga, because you have the merit of the artistic aesthetics that would be offered up. Those are the things of value that were offered up to the king to be kept in the collection in Lemminkainen Temple. And then you had the and then you had in the breeding system, you would choose, if you were the man, you would choose a woman from a lower caste than you and bring her into your caste, and who she bears in young, I believe gets to be part of the caste. I think that's how it works, right? Or something to that effect. Or at the very least, she's a part of the cast, but her children aren't, but they're her children. I can't exactly remember how that worked, but I'm just saying, like, there's your choosing right there, right? There's those upline going up to the Aser people class, the what I suppose you'd call the Jarl class or whatever, and then they're choosing people from the Von class, and then the Von is, from everyone else. So you see the idea there, right? So this all makes perfect sense.
Okay. Oh, not so much. It's just that this ring here represents Udama, or hell. And this line here is the meridian, the meridian line that goes around the planet. There's another one that goes this way, so it divides the planet into 4 hemispheres. This ring is called one Rosti, and Rosti was an information center, so all information is coming from Ra's tour, Rosti. The even cross is called Rosti, the Christian cross, as they call it today, is called Risti.
Okay, so there's a good one for you. So know that there's the Rasti and the Risti, and this makes me think of the Rosicrucians. And the Rosicrucians, I believe, are working with the Rasti, not the Risti. And, some churches can be real sneaky about it. And what's interesting? I can't remember if I took any footage of it. There's a monument. It's not a tombstone, but there's a monument in my big local Catholic cemetery, and it's a Celtic cross monument. It's huge. But I had a closer look at this Celtic cross, And it is a rasti, not a risti, because although it stems all the way down, there's actually a carve out where the cross is actually equilateral, right? So it's actually an equilateral cross, and then the southern tip of the cross is actually just pedestaled. I mean, it's all one solid piece of rock, but the carving implies that this is a rasti cross on an axis mundi, right? So that's the proper Celtic cross by that merit, as a pagan symbol hiding within Christendom.
You'll find that this is the American medicine wheel for the Red Indian. He has a ring with a cross in it, which represents the North Pole.
I think this here is this head of this Midgård worm, this snake, this mythical snake. This spiral, or this spiral here, is inside the temple. This is the golden spiral. When you see the spiral, the spiral has to do with inside this storehouse in the temple, with all these chambers along it. That's what the spiral has to do with.
And like I said, when we were in the Paradise and Alpha Draconis was the pole star, that left Draco as Jormungandr spinning. And you look at the shape of Jormungandr, it would rotate pinwheel style, and you get that effect, that pinwheel effect that looks like everything is spinning. It's the same thing with the swastika, right? This is all the same thing.
The museum wants to call this a whirling disc because they don't understand what this really represents, the museum, because we've lost this. But this spinning action here, also on this stone here, it's nicer to see on this stone. The whirling disc, this actually represents the centrifugal craft, or the centrifugal force of this planet spinning, looking straight down from the very top when the planet was sitting like this. This center point is held, one ring in the middle. We'll look at another one in the middle, and in the center of that ring is the very North Pole of the planet. And when we died before, we were all burned, and our ash was put under our roots of our family tree. And I've said about how this soul went up through the top, through the leaf, and back into the air as this planet is spinning around and around. So all soul, all spirit on the planet spun around and around and entered this hole, what we call the Holy, or the Hell League, which is on one island a few kilometers over here from in Helsinki, Finland. They always want to say these are weapons when you see one lance, but this lance, this pole with this point on it, actually represented the breeder, because we had two forms of the head of the prick. We had one shaped like one klub or club, and he was one kluba. But if a man had one shaft with one pointed, it was one lancet, and one lancet is one lancera. He's one breeder. So when you see the klub or the lance or the sword, these are not. These people had no warfare. Their war was making children. Here's another one here of the centrifugal. You can see this ring in the middle represents the ringland at the top of the planet Hell, and the little dot that's in the very center represents Valhalla, the heaven for the Vikings, which in root language they call Himmel. In Finnish they call it Taivaan or Taivas. So this small hole in the very center represents the hole in the very top of the axis.
Yeah, it does look like a peppermint. We have a deep affection for this symbol. This symbol is seen in many places in different forms, right? It represents a very, very deep central principle to the center of you, to the center of energy, and its relationship going outward.
So the planet. There's one hole today. I explained it in the Welcome to Hell tape. And this has to do with the tour. It's two offering systems.
Looks to be like snakes, but this is, I think, one bird. This probably is feminine here. The woman is the bird. The man, he's not the bird. So when you see a bird's head, it usually has to do with Aka, Ella, or Guma. These stones are almost 10,000 years old. They want to give a date of 600, 700, because that's when their whole history, their Viking history began.
So I find it interesting what he just said there about, like, the bird people in mythology is usually women, right? Because then I think about, there's all sorts of things to be said about Thoth. Hey, what's up, Saniko? There's all sorts of things to be said about Thoth, as we know. But there's Horus also, and Horus is a dude, but I suppose Horus's birth is such a mother's story. So is Horus more about Isis than Horus himself? Right? Is Horus just an extension of Isis? Does Horus represent that? Like, how's that work? Right? That's a change up, right? But then again, also Egypt is hermetic animist, right? Very unique because they're hermetic.
But these rune stones here in Gotland, when they came out of the ice 10,032 years ago, they came to Gotland from this hell because of these glaciers were coming down. And they carved these stones, and all these rune stones is the story of hell. And this thing around the side has to do with some kind of offering system. When the church came along, our whole offering system completely changed. In the Saga, they talk about a queen in this highest...
Oh, and by the way, Jim didn't mention it, but I noticed that little squiggle above that particular centrifugal relief. So there's so once again, you've got the serpent right next to that, meaning, that it's probably once again talking about Draco. Maybe in a slight chance it could be talking about Serpens, which is another serpent constellation in the sky.
Family on the planet called Pirouet. The first...
Well, Saniko, the oldest Jewish text is like saying, like, well, the first thing the ChatGPT ever said was, it's the Jewish text is bullshit because the Jews lost their language. They lost their language. Any of their earliest texts is a recreation, and everything, right? It's all screwy. Can't even, with that stuff anymore. Once you understand the backstory of Jewish texts because of the Jewish language, because language is fucking important to figuring it all out.
Daughter was called Maya. And Maya is where the word May comes from. Mayan Indians, Mai. The corn's called mais, maize. And this Mai, she had 6 sisters. And these 6 sisters were called Hexa.
Oh yeah, wait, that reminds me. And Ra was a bird also. Ra was a bird. Like Ra is usually we look at like the sun disk or whatever, we think of Ra, but like we forget that like I'll watch like a mythology thing, and then the art shows up for Ra, and that reminds me, because we spend so little time looking at Ra, right? Things have gone very Osiris, and Ra even can get a bad rap because of how often his name is used in, I suppose, a more secular sense that ends up being involved with the dark sorcery side of Egyptian magic, which is, I suppose, a corruption by people. It's very complicated, right? But yeah, so anyway, that's more male bird figures in Egypt, and we all know that Egypt's very important to this story.
Like hexagram, so 6 hexa. So this is what we call one hexa, which means witch in English. Hexa means a witch in root language or Swedish, and in Finnish language she's called Noita. And there she's sitting there in this position And here's one tour system. She's making offering systems. These 7 sisters are being, all the women on the planet are offering to these 7 sisters. These 6 sisters is Hexa, their sister Maya the queen, and their mother, who is called Guma or Akka or Ella.
Now, by the way, that's also, you look at that, that's fucking Cernunnos. 2 arms up with the snake, and then, you know, kind of like sitting down, granted this legs spread, but it's kind of, it's spread so wide, it's just kind of making the point of, like, sitting down and stuff. Thanks, Zerilath. Okay, thanks, Gareth. Thanks for popping in, man. Hope you catch the rest of the show later. These snakes featured on a white snake band cover was on TOR today. TOR? Well, TOR is also Tor, and then Tor is a thing. So before they had, okay, so the Jewish texts had them worshiping, right? Pretty much it was before. Yeah. Okay. So cool. So anyway, that's fucking Cernunnos, right? So there's a little hint to the mysteries of Cernunnos for you, right?
It's not so much to say for this, except you can see that in these runestones they all have one helmet, which this is the form of the phallic, which is one, many of these runestones have this forehead, the head that hangs in 4. I think these guys here are coming, they're Robbies, they're bringing seed up in one offering system. This here is one of these domestic animals called cow that they created in hell in this Altlantis period. This animal was created from the goat. They made the cow, the pig, and the sheep. They're all created creatures in English. They're domestic animals. They say here 9th century. They're only about 9,000 years off when they're dating here. Not so much, 9,000 years. Because they don't know their history anymore. They have no idea that the Swedish and the Danish people are over 9,000 years old. They have no idea. They think they come from Germany. So the museum today, they're just guessing, and they're guessing very bad. Without the Bock Saga, they'll never find out anything. They'll just keep guessing and giving wrong answers, so the children get the wrong answers one after one after one. And then their children get the wrong answers one after one. You can see up here at the top, this is one breeder. He has one lance with one sharp point. The swords are not have nothing to do with killing each other. The swords is one breeding symbol. The sword has one what they call ood. An ood is one blunt end, which represents this breeding system. And of course these discs, they represent the sun. They also, the full moon is one disc. And one disc is one Shiva. This round ring, this with the hole in the middle like a donut, this is Udin. It's one white ring around the sun with the sun shining out. And this looks like this is one Maya or one swan over here with this dress on. It's hard to tell, but it represents one of these women in this pantheon of the highest family on the planet. Like I said, all these rune stones are the story of hell. They put them into, when they first came out from hell, they wrote this stuff down.
So, real quick, I just want to respond. Saniko, the Swedish archaeologists are smelting artifacts? Like melting them down into ingots, right? That's, I think, what smelting is the process of. Wow. And, why is no one capable of stopping them, realizing that is a deed to be stopped? That's really fucking unfortunate that that a European country like that is, making such a call. Ugh. An unfortunate smelting accident. Oh my gosh. What was it? I'm Dutch. Isn't that weird?
7 hills in hell. Here's 7 here.
There was always 7 of these 12 boys in the middle, called Ball, Bock, and Balder. And each of these brothers, there was one sitting, and there was 7 temples in hell. And when the Rabbis came from all over the planet, bringing the seed up, bringing the offering up, they were offering to these 7 hills in hell.
So, Ball, Bock, and Balder. So Bock's bloodline is brother to a bloodline that is the namesake of Baal? Which isn't the most shocking thing, because also Balder, which has Baal in it, right? And we're very dog whistle conditioned because of Christian trutherism to get triggered this way with these words, right? Because of course there's there's a contextual approach going on here, right? I got a lot more to learn on these matters before I can really open it up, because there's, on that spiritual side, there's definitely something wrong with Baal, but that comes from there rarely ever being a proper context. It's always in the context of the dark forces that are doing all sorts of shit that I'm not going to talk about right now.
And there was one of these Ball, Bock, and Balder sitting on these 7 hills, and they offered to these, and these 7 brothers came back into the ring with the other 5 brothers and the father. There was 13 in altogether, 12 boys and the All-Father. And this is part of an old system of offering here. Now this is Ukko and Akka, which was Bock and Swan. You can see he has this pointed head. So it means that he also has this sword, which means he's the breeder. This is Akka. She has, maybe this is one moon, which represents her daughter Maya. The woman is the lock, and the man is the key to the lock. But the woman, she holds the key to the lock.
Okay, everybody make your Ghostbuster jokes right now. Let's get out of your system. Yeah, I'm the key holder. Rick Moranis. Okay, so Swan being Akka, Swan, I mean, that also, that's Frigga, so it all makes perfect sense.
She's the Lady Luck. There's 10 shields here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. This represents the 10 Tio. These are the 10 brothers in the middle, I think. The picture stone imaginary provides us with a unique insight into prehistory. Apart from the religious beliefs, myths, and legends, they convey details and realistic depictions of people's appearances, dress, and activities, as well as of those various constructions of use of ships, houses, and weapons. Yeah, it's unique insight in prehistory if you know what they mean, but if you don't know the meaning, it's no insight to it at all. It's some just incredible stones carved, but if you don't know what the characters are. Eeyore, he knew. There's other people in the Saga who can explain these stones much better than me. And there's not so much more to say in this. I think the main one we have to say is in the Stockholm Museum.
So maybe, I will hope, I need to touch base and see if I can get a hold of Michelle Merrill, because I'd like to interview him on the channel. So if I can get Michelle, perhaps Michelle is one of the guys that knows these stones better. I'd love to talk to him about the archaeology from Altlantis. Okay.
is a good one here because when Bock was in hell, he had a cart with 8 goats. And here he shows him a cart with these goats pulling. He had 8 of these goats. He shows 2 here, but there's actually 8 goats. He pulls them. This is the swan here. She's also called Yotzen. This is Balder. I'm not sure. I think he's still a Balder here. He has one Lance, which is a symbol for the breeder. This must be Ra and Maya, because here's the full moon. So this is probably Ra and Maya, because they represent the moon. It's not so much to say, except this is Sulbuk and Balder with his helmet, and this is shield is this centrifugal or the centrifugal force of the planet spinning, looking from the top down. This is Valhalla in the middle. This horse here has one penis head with one pointed head instead of one club form, and this is the form of his breeding decoration is the form of this. This here is one loud score, like one horn. Today they say they were drinking beer and ale, but before it was for offering seed up to the Father.
I'm a little confused because see you later, Tim. It seemed like he was pointing at the horse's like his head, like his head, but saying but that seemed to be where he was pointing to say that was his supposed to be his penis as pointy, thus a breeder. It's interesting. Anyway.
Here we have slate here. The man on top, he's called Sulbuk and Balder. He has one helmet, and he's got his hand, and he has one breeding decoration on one point, which makes him the breeder. There was 2 forms. One was a club, one was a lance or a point. These 8 legs that he has here, they represent the 8 powers of hell. Hell, Bock, Eve, Udin, Ra, Tur, Freya. 8 powers, these 8 legs. This construction here, Valhalla Valley, sitting on one island over in front of Helsinki, Finland. This is sitting right on the North Pole. Valhalla is Valhalla, and Val means one gate. So this is the gate to Valhalla, or the gate to heaven. Behind it was one tower called Glance Hill. The God Father was standing looking down to the gate of heaven.
myself that one could say that this is a young forest, I suppose. I mean, there's a lot of trees, but look, there's nothing massive up here. So this is probably indicative of the deforestation that was explained by Jim in that prior. I think it was in the Rajasthan episode I played, talking about the Finns' deal with the British to provide them the sap from their trees to seal their ships. And keep this in mind. This is another. I was just talking about this with Micah because it was something I had just learned. Is that, and then the wood itself for the ships was actually coming from where I am, from the American Northeast, from New England, and which was part of the excuse for cutting down the great old trees. And there's very few parts of the forest that that are old growth with bigger trees. More of the trees are much like these.
Susi means wolf. Luola, I think, is cave, the wolf cave. Susi is also like Susisari, where we made this North Pole story. Million, 10,032 years ago, the axle of this planet tilted over, the sea evaporated to the top of the ball, and the ys or ice came down, and the whole top of this planet and the whole bottom of this planet was covered in ice, kilometers deep, in 90 days. And in this time, when this ice came down, there was one part of the planet where the ice didn't come, and the people survived. But in the top of the planet where the ice came down, all people were covered with kilometers of ice. And when this ice came down, it made one dome on the top of the planet. And there's this warm water that comes from the Gulf of Mexico, still today. It's called the Gulf Stream. And this warm water coming from this Gulf of Mexico came across the Atlantic Ocean, up the coast of Norway, and continued over the top of the planet. It was one stream of water that constantly brought warm water up to the top of this planet. But when this ice came down and covered this ball, the top of this ball in one ice cap, this warm water from the Gulf of Mexico, as it came up towards Norway, this cap of ice would not let this water continue over the top of the planet. So as this warm water came up and came to this ice cap, it hit the ice cap and was rerouted down the coast of Norway and went into the Baltic Sea, the Gulf of Finland. So this warm water has been rerouted in, and as this ice came down, it melted and created one hole in the ice. All of this area around the Baltic Sea, within a few kilometers of the coast, it didn't freeze. And this Osser family, this Bock family, they survived this ice. But now they're trapped in ice. They're in isolation, and they have no contact with the rest of the planet. Before, they had one contact system of an all-father and an all-mother standing here at the top that had one breeding system and one information system that went to all places on this planet as the people inhabited it. And so as this warm water came into the Baltic Sea, it created one warm zone where these people, they could survive. But these people in the Paradise time, we were all brown. We all had brown eyes. We were all vegetarian on this whole planet. But this small group of people who got trapped in this isolation in this place we call Altlantis, all lands ice, which is Frankenland, France, Switzerland, Saxonland, Ireland, Scotland, England, Svealand, Sweden, Denmark, Donland, Norland, Finland, Rusland, Greenland. All these lands were ice. Below the Pyrenees Mountains you have Spain, Portugal, Italy, Morocco, Argentina, Gambia. There's no lands below this ice system. Today we have New Zealand, named by the Dutch. We have Swaziland. We have Thailand. But these are all new names. So all the lands became ice except for this one area around the Baltic Sea where we sit today, a few kilometers from this coast over here. And inside this Altlantis, these people had to start to live a completely different life as we did. Before, it was a 24-hour golden circle of light, banana papaya up here, but now with this ice, these people had to change everything. We became with 4 seasons. In this situation, these people, they started to create agriculture because they needed to store food for the winter, which we didn't need in the tropics. So they made 4 seed: the wheat, the barley, the oat, and the rye. And we could store this food in this 7 months of nice weather around this coast, and then 4 months of complete dark frozen. So these people, they had to store food for this 4 or 5 months of this dark winter that they have still here today. They also started to create what we call article domestic animals, because now for the first time in the history we had to start eating meat. And before the ice time we had one animal called the goat that had one hoof. And this goat, since it was the symbol for the Bock family, they had no feeling to eat this goat. So from the goat, over a long, long period of time, this goat started to develop into different animals. And from the goat, they made the cow, the pig, and the sheep. These are article, domestical animals created by these Asser people inside of Altlantis. So they had food to eat, meat to eat in this winter time. From the peacock, a tropical bird, beautiful, they had no feeling to eat the peacock. So from the peacock, over a long period of time, they made it into the chicken. From the dove, they made the pigeon, which we can also eat the pigeon. So these people, they started to create agriculture, domestic animal, a completely different life than we had in the Paradise. From the palm tree, they started to create what we call the evergreen trees, these trees that stay green all year long. These are the product of a long period of time coming from the palm tree, but they grow very quickly because they needed much wood to burn in this 4 months of complete darkness and cold. So they created new trees, they created article animals, domestic animals to eat, and agriculture. These people in Atlantis, they lived in small houses. I think they were 6 meters by 6 meters. 24 people in each house, 12 women on one side of the fire and 12 men on the other side of the fire. And the women never left the house except to go to the toilet in these 4 or 5 months of cold, freezing, dark weather. They stayed inside. All their children were born in the end of March. So these children inside these small houses, they had holes in the walls so they could pull one cork, one plug from the wall. And the sun, Udin, could shine one strala into the small house so these children, the mothers, could hold these babies. And as this straw of light, they could put this light of the sun onto the head of this baby so it could get sun, because we need the sun. In May, they could come out, and from May, June, July, August, September, October, November, they could live outside. They could create what they needed But come December, January, February, March, they had to go back inside these small houses. And these people, they're living inside this Atlantis time. Many, many millions of years. The human race is much, much older than what they want to say today. For millions of years, these people lived inside this ice time. They made our games, checkers, backgammon, chess, all these games they created. The cards. The cards are 52 cards, 52 weeks to the year, 4 seasons, 13 weeks in each season, 13 cards in each suit. So this whole card system is made on this new system of 4 seasons instead of 1 tropical season. In the Saga, it said these people, they lived around this Baltic Sea. And over a long, long, long period of time, we started to lose the pigment in our skin. From brown, we start to get lighter and lighter and lighter. Our brown hair started to get lighter and lighter and lighter, and our brown eyes slowly, slowly became blue and green eyes. So in the Saga, it says the original white people on the planet came here in the Finland during this ice age. From a lack of sun, from a lack of light, over a long, long period of time, we became what they call one Arctical race of people. This cave behind us is one cave called Wolf Cave. We're here in a little place called Karajoki, Finland, South Finland, not so far from the coast. So all this area here was all like...
So was it named karaoke because you guys would just sing insufferably to each other throughout the whole week? Sorry, bad joke.
It is right now in the summertime. Beautiful. Inside, you go inside the Finland, there came one wall of ice. But all along this Baltic Sea, all the way Leningrad to St. Petersburg, all the way Helsinki, all Sweden, this water comes up between Sweden, this part of this Baltic Sea comes between Sweden and Finland. All this area, for 7 months of the year, it was beautiful like it is today. And these people, they lived here. This cave is one, I don't know, you maybe not call it one scandal, but it's one thing that the museum, they have no story. How could anybody be living here in the South Finland? They say that this cave is more than 130,000 years old. And there's a settlement of people who were living in this place right here. 130,000 years ago, inside of what should have been glaciers, without the understanding of the Baltic Sea becoming this Gulf Stream, it would be impossible for this place to have any kind of life. But because of this warm water, there was life. There were people living here. And these people who were living in this cave 120,000 years ago, they were called Asser. They were Finnish people. They were white. They had light hair, blue eyes, and they spoke Finnish language. They're not Neanderthals. They're Finnish. The Northern Europe people came from here. They didn't come up this way. They are not Neanderthals. And the reason we don't find skeletons and find graveyards or human bones is because in the Paakana time, in the Hedning time, or the pagan time in English, people, we had no graves. We burned everybody. Everybody was cremated and their ash was put under a tree. So they'll never find any old bones from human beings. But inside this cave, they found fire. That means there was forest here in the middle of what should have been glaciers. They found tools human beings were making. And they found mastodon bones. Mastodon. That's an Arctical elephant. That's a cold water elephant. There were mastodons walking around this place 120,000 years ago. And 120,000 years ago is older than anything anywhere. The pyramids are 6,000 years old. The Stonehenge is 6,000 or 8,000 years old. They find things, you know, they found settlements maybe 20, 30,000, but 120,000 years, there is no settlement anywhere that I've seen anywhere that says there were people living.
All right, so Saniko asks, why are they blocking off the historical site? Well, that is mostly, think about it this way. If I'm a person who is curious about a cave, the one reason I would not want to go into a cave is because there might be big fucking creatures. Bears, wolves. I mean, I don't want to fucking cross a Wolverine in a cave. Right? That is there so you don't fucking run in and like fall and get lost forever kind of thing. Right? Like that's what it's there for. I mean, like look at it. Nobody is there. Like this is just it's a hiking spot and somebody put up a barrier to protect you. You saw footage from inside the cave a few minutes ago in this film. So it's blocked off. It's for protection, literally. You can break in if you want, but it protects you if you're the one that would not want to wander there, if you're with your kids. What if your dog? What if you're walking with your dog sees the cave, wants to run off, runs into the fucking cave? I think it's a great idea that they put this barrier there, especially because it's not that bad of a barrier. You can just fucking like hop over it. But it's protective because I don't want to think about the nightmare scenario of a problem in that cave. So that makes sense to me, especially because it's not truly blocked off.
Of course, the museum, they want to deny all this because they have no idea. But in the Bock Saga, it says, yes, this was part of Atlantis. This is part of the Altlantis. So,
actually, I wouldn't even include spiders in that because they're spiders. I mean, just, like, there's spiders in this house, right? I don't know how big Finnish spiders get, but I would imagine that there's probably more spiders in the trees than in that cave.
we're sitting in one settlement of the oldest settlement known to human beings. But the Musevia Rasta here, they have no story for these people, so they want to really disclaim it. They don't want to listen to the Bock Saga. They don't think that an oral story could be true. And these people living in this cave 120,000 years ago were Arctic people. As this warm water kept going up, being rerouted into the Gulf of Finland, into the Baltic Sea, eventually this warm water finally cut away at the glaciers at the top of Norway, at the top of Sweden, at the top of Russia. And about 10,000 years ago, a little more, these glaciers cut loose and they started to slide down. And these people who lived in this Atlantis, they knew they had to come out. And 10,032 years ago, they came to one island called Gotland. But this place that we sit now, it is one settlement, according to the Bock Saga of Atlantis. This is the Atlantis that they talk about. The Atlantis is one story created by, we first hear from a guy called Plato in Greece who said he got the story from Egypt. And this first pharaoh that went to Egypt 6,000 years ago, he was from Finland, the first pharaoh. He was one white man, blue eyes, yellow hair. And he took the understanding to build pyramid down to the Egypt. And there he explained that he was one descendant of these Atlanteans. And from there the story went to the Plato. And the Plato, he wrote a few pages or a few words about this place called Atlantis, or what we call Altlantis. People look everywhere on this planet. Caribbean, the Atlantic, all over this place. Where could this be? What did they do in Atlantis? But in Atlantis, it's where the white people came from. It's where the domestic animal comes from. It's from where the agriculture comes from.
And you see, this is all like a language issue, right? Because Plato, the people who interpreted what Plato interpreted have gone into science fiction speculation for the inspiration of the masses. That's all that that Atlantis as a name has become. Personally, I think, like I said, I asked my questions about all the stones, that what we're looking for would not be called Atlantis as Plato spoke of it.
And that's where we are today. So this is, I don't know, this may be the first place that we can actually say this is Atlantis, according to the Bock Saga. In this cave here, there were people living here. We've tried to contact the museum, but they don't want to hear anything we have to say about the saga. They already know it all. But the problem is, all they know is 1250, because in 1250, we became under the Swedish here, and the Finnish history is lost. So the museum, they have no answer. They have no idea they were even a kingdom before. They have no idea that they had a king and queen in Finland. They have the name Kuningas and Kuningatar, which means king and queen. So they sit and they deny it all.
Yeah, that's because their history people, they want to get this knowledge from their way of learning. These archaeologists, as such, they're not necessarily following a trivium-based delineation process. They're, it's the same thing with like scientists that are giving you the craziest theories to rationalize. I think it's dark matter is the one that people are realizing is complete bullshit. Whatever some of these particulars are, right? Because everything is about, Einstein, right? And that Einstein's theory of relativity cannot be misunderstood, right? And then, of course, you find out that Einstein stole the theory of relativity, and not just as a patent office thing, but the fact that the theory of relativity had been going around for quite a few years prior to him.
So this is just one more little piece to try to find things that make the Bock Saga to be true. And we'll put that like that for now.
Now, by the way, having that closer look at the cave there at that last shot, it actually does seem to be closed off, right? Because when I'm looking at this shot at the end here, I'm just like, okay, I don't know if I could jump. There's no way I can squeeze in between that, right? But I didn't see all of that, because when he's sitting right here, I'm looking over here, and you can see where my mount, like, I'm almost thinking to myself that's like a couple of, that's like almost like a foot or so of, like, it looks like I could, like, suck in my gut and squeeze through.
But this small group of people who...
Oops, sorry. But at the same time, I would say there's safety issues. I would say that there's, you don't want vandals, because if the archaeologists, if the historians have already looked and at least said it's significant to something, right? Then it's blocked off. It doesn't have to have anything to do with the Bock Saga, unless the King of Finland had left this as kind of part of the deal, right? And that, neither Bock nor the people that have learned the saga get to know any of this, right? And that the king is kind of making this decree, and then everybody is reverse rationalizing the constrictions given to them by the king, all hidden under parliamentary procedure in the government of Finland. Might be some nonsense like that. Do not know. I'm not going to try and figure that out now, because I don't know enough about what's going on in Finnish in the Finnish world. I may never know what's going on in the Finnish world. They're, like the language, the fucking language alone, right? Difficult thing. So, thankfully, the network of Bock Saga lovers is huge now, and including people that are learning Finnish and or are just in network with people that know Finnish, and we're at least figuring a handful of things out this way. So thank you guys all so much for coming in and joining me on this next episode of the Bock Saga. Maybe I'll do Welcome to Hell next time I feel the urge. I hope that Michelle will take an interview from me, and I think I might want to do the Truth Warrior podcast. I think it was David Whitehead's podcast, where it was David, Michael Tsarion, Jim Chesner, and I think Jokke Hagström was the fourth guy on the panel. And I might want to play that. And that's a long one, right? I think that's like about a 2-hour, 20-something minute conversation panel happening right there, right? So I may want to actually cover that. I may, especially with my love of Whitehead and Tsarion. Okay, all right, guys. Thank you so much. 1 second here. Let me. All right. Another one of Derek's channels gets to be a mod. Want to thank Gareth Turner for being here. He's a new voice to my ears. Tim was here. Parsons, thank you guys so much. I'm pretty sure I'm all up to date in the chat room. I didn't blast this out like I usually do. Like I didn't throw it across Telegram this time. So maybe that's why the turnout was what it was today, but that's okay. This is still good turn. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here. The few small people. Maybe one day I'll have way more of my shit together, and this won't be such a low budget, almost rip off production of things that I do on this channel. I mean, a lot of it is me building myself. I like to keep things going from where I was in the truther world, doing conspiracy esoteric, and the way I've evolved and interest, and how I like to keep it up. All of that kind of fits into the various things I feel I need, that I think that everybody should have. Not my particular things, but the point is to have this kind of breadth of knowledge about things in general. Get yourself to specialities, no doubt, but have a breadth of knowledge. Okay, thank you so much. I will catch you guys soon.